Fortunate for me, the burden of child-rearing expenses has come to an end. Let's part ways, were the shocking words John dropped on me as we prepared for a funeral. Despite his known selfishness, this revelation surpassed my imagination. He disclosed his desire to marry a woman who did not want children, and the prospect of continued financial losses on child support and medical bills for our son Charlie loomed over me. A wave of relief swept through me at the realization that despite the chilling fact of John being Charlie's father, I would no longer bear the financial strain. Agreeing to the divorce, I acquiesced to letting John take the house, urging him to leave promptly after the funeral. As he departed, I felt a chill, and though my mind cleared, my insides simmered with anger. Reading Charlie's will after John's departure, I discovered shocking reactions from relatives directed at John. It was time for a counterattack. My name is Natasha, a 42-year-old housewife. Formerly a translator in a company, I now work freelance. My husband, John, 3 years my senior at 45, and I got married when I was 29. Our son, Charlie, was born the following year, but John's selfishness meant he played little part in raising him. Charlie's fragile health led to frequent hospital visits, and as his condition worsened at the age of 12, a rainy season brought uncontrollable coughing, food rejection, and unrelenting fever, rushing him to the hospital. We initiated a series of treatments. However, his symptoms showed little improvement. Mom, sorry for being hospitalized again. Don't be sorry. You're going to get better, right? Charlie weakly smiled. Tears welled up in me, but I suppressed them, not wanting to show my distress in front of him. When Charlie finally dozed off, I called John repeatedly, but there was no answer. Maybe he was caught up in a business meeting. I resorted to messaging, and John's reply came the next morning. Anxious, I called him immediately, and this time, he picked up promptly. What now? So early in the morning. Don't what now me? Why won't you come? Charlie's fighting so hard. Well, my being there won't cure his sickness, right? And hey, the hospital bills must be piling up again. Tell the doctor to charge him as soon as possible. What? How can you say that? Can't hear you. I'm off to work now. Waita. John hung up without listening further. His indifference towards Charlie was not new, but this level of cruelty was unprecedented. Clenching my phone, I shook with anger. As the rainy season turned to summer, Charlie's condition showed no signs of improvement. The doctors doubted he would make it to winter. Cutting back on work, I spent more time with him. Mom, you've been with me from morning to evening lately. Is your work okay? It's fine. I'm managing everything from home, so don't worry. If you say so. Charlie didn't seem convinced. He probably thought my work had dried up because of him. To avoid causing him more stress, our conversations shifted focus. I positioned my laptop in front of Charlie, working within his line of sight. Charlie, an avid reader, spent most of his days immersed in books. Despite his frailty, he also enjoyed studying and attended the hospital school whenever he felt well enough. I wanted to grant him every wish, but John, on the contrary, expressed clear displeasure. He not only avoided visiting Charlie, but also incessantly complained at home. Is that kid still not discharged? Staying in a private room, huh? What a waste of money. How can you say that when your son is fighting so hard? Why don't you visit him for once? I'm busy, okay? You visiting him is enough. John's attitude remained unchanged, and he never visited Charlie in the hospital, despite being his father. I knew Charlie must be feeling lonely, but I refrained from forcing John to visit against his will. By this time, John often came home late, reeking of alcohol. He attributed it to client entertaining, but lipstick on laundered shirts and motel receipts hinted at an affair. He couldn't spare time for Charlie, but found time for another woman. My love for John had dwindled, but I hesitated to divorce him, fearing it would sadden Charlie. Enduring the situation, Charlie's health deteriorated. John's late arrivals continued, marked by the scent of alcohol. He claimed it was for client entertainment, but lipstick-stained shirts and motel receipts suggested otherwise. While my affection for John had waned, I worried that divorcing him would bring further distress to Charlie. During this time, Charlie's condition worsened. The doctor delivered shocking news during a summoned meeting. "I'm sorry, but he only has about a month left." "Doctor, isn't there anything you can do?" "There's not much more we can do." Breaking down in tears, the doctor assured me, "We'll do our best till the very end." For about half a month, the emotional journey grew more intense. We persisted with treatment, consulting with the doctor regularly, but, as anticipated, Charlie's frail body continued to weaken. Faced with his deteriorating condition, Charlie voiced his concerns. "Am I going to be gone soon? There's so much more you want to do, right?" Encouraging him with reassuring words, I would privately shed tears away from Charlie's sight. Eventually, when the doctor conveyed that further treatment would be futile, I made the difficult decision to take Charlie home to spend his final moments. "Are we going home?" Charlie asked weakly. "Yes," the doctor said a change of scenery for a few days would be good. Charlie's feeble yet childlike response brought a mixture of joy and sorrow. I informed John about the decision, but all he could muster was an indifferent "eh" before leaving the house. I had lost all hope in him, believing him beyond redemption. The discharge was scheduled for the next evening, prompting me to immerse myself in preparations and paperwork. As I packed Charlie's belongings, he suddenly posed a question. "Mom, do you love Dad?" Taken aback by the unexpected inquiry, I paused. Charlie continued without waiting for my response. "Dad doesn't seem interested in me or you. So, if you don't love Dad, I want you to divorce and live your life." It became apparent that Charlie had sensed the strained relationship between John and me. Yet, as a parent, I couldn't let him worry about us until the end. Swiftly putting on a smile, I responded, "What are you talking about? I love your dad, and he cares about us too. He's just too busy to visit, so don't worry, okay?" "But, okay." Charlie didn't seem convinced. But Charlie stopped pursuing the matter after that. He fell asleep, and I breathed a sigh of relief. 2 days later, Charlie passed away at home. John never showed up until the end, and I stayed by Charlie's side, holding his cooling body, crying out loud, "Charlie, Charlie," and clinging to the memories of every moment he came into my life. The doctor and a nurse who had been with us since Charlie was young came to mourn and explain the next steps. One of them handed me a letter from Charlie's bag saying, "This is from Charlie. He said to give it to you if anything happened." I received the letter, expressing gratitude to the doctor and the nurse. Alone, without John's help, and with Charlie suffering from his illness, I could only be thankful to those who kindly supported us through this difficult time. After they left, I'd opened the letter beside Charlie. The content made me cry out in surprise. Charlie's letter contained not only his gratitude, but also something shocking. Reading it, I felt my blood boil. Even as the funeral director came to discuss arrangements, my mind was consumed by the letter's content. Still, I had to decide on the details for Charlie's sake, planning a small, homey funeral. Then, the day before the funeral, John finally showed his face, still reeking of alcohol. I had no energy left to confront him. John, noticing my exhaustion, casually commented, "You aged," as he took out more alcohol from the fridge to drink. "Tomorrow is Charlie's funeral." "Where have you been?" "I told you I was at work. What's with all these complaints? Why did I marry such a man?" I thought, feeling drained and frustrated. No, without him. My mind was in turmoil. Charlie was no longer with us, and John's attitude, treating Charlie as if he were some distant relative, filled me with simmering anger. However, arguing with him seemed pointless, so I decided to focus on the funeral arrangements for the next day. During the preparations, John dropped a bombshell. "Lucky me, no more child-rearing expenses. Let's get divorced." I couldn't hide my shock at his callous words. Despite knowing his selfish nature, this was beyond anything I had expected. He continued callously, "There's a woman I want to marry, but she doesn't want kids. So, with Charlie alive, the child support and medical expenses would drain my money." Ah, what a relief. I felt a chill run through me at the realization that such a man was Charlie's father. As my head cleared, my anger boiled over, and I reluctantly agreed to the divorce. Fine then. I'll take the house. Get out as soon as you can. Just wait until after the funeral, John declared before leaving on the day of the funeral. I read Charlie's will, and John turned pale while relatives glared at him with fierce faces. Now it was time for my counterattack. Charlie's will, which I read aloud, exposed John's affair. Until that moment, John had played the role of a grieving father, crying loudly. But as the contents of the will unfolded, he desperately tried to deny it, appearing pathetically defensive. How could such a letter be real? It's not true, right, Natasha? I felt sorry for not visiting because of work, but this is too much, John stammered, attempting to deflect the truth revealed in Charlie's final words. I silently retrieved an envelope from my bag and thrust the photos in front of John. What? You took pictures? Troubled by being caught in a compromising photo, John stumbled over his words, his face still pale. I smiled sweetly and asked the relatives to pass around a few more photos that I had. Whispers of disgust and small cries of shock arose from all around. Despicable. Not visiting his frail son, but being seen with this woman in such a scandalous manner. The glares at John intensified, and he slumped down in his seat. I then presented John with the divorce papers. He looked up at me in shock, his voice cracking as if he was about to cry. You didn't pay attention to me because you were always nursing him. It was just a fling. Forgive me. I don't want a divorce. Not paying attention. You're not a child. I repeatedly asked you to help me nurse him, but you always ran away, claiming work as an excuse. But nursing is dirty. As soon as John said that, he disappeared from my view. When I looked down, he was crawling on the floor, with my father-in-law standing over him, breathing heavily. You! What do you mean nursing your own son is dirty enough with the jokes? A parent who doesn't care for their child isn't a parent at all. You're the lowest of the low. My in-laws, who had always adored Charlie, celebrated every hospital discharge with a meal, bought Charlie his favorite things, and never missed a visit. They had been covering for John, believing his excuses about being busy at work, never imagining their own son could be such a disgrace. Tears streaked their faces as they glared at John, who sat in disbelief, clutching his cheek where he'd been struck. Natasha, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. If we knew he was such a man, we would have encouraged you to divorce him sooner. We are truly sorry. They began to bow deeply, and I hurried to lift them up. It wasn't their fault. Charlie loved his grandparents, and their presence was one reason I hadn't divorced John. You guys are not to blame. Look, Charlie's letter says thank you and stay healthy. Charlie and I both love you very much, Natasha. Thank you. Sorry. Charlie's mother-in-law hugged me, sobbing quietly, and his father-in-law was also crying, apologizing to me. John, finally coming to his senses, stood up and pointed at me, yelling, "Don't be ridiculous. She's just an old lady who couldn't even take care of her husband, a failure of a wife." John, as my father-in-law, lunged towards John. I stepped in front of John, and he looked at me with a fearful yet defiant glare. What? You got something to say? Not really. This is reality. No one here is on your side. And make sure to pay back the money you've borrowed from many people, haven't you? How do you know about that? At my words, relatives who had lent John money began murmuring. After reading Charlie's letter, I had contacted the relatives. Charlie had overheard John's expensive activities, involving a woman from a nightclub who loved lavish things like brand products and overseas trips. John, paying for all of it, could never afford such a lifestyle on his salary alone. Realizing this, I had checked if anyone had lent him money, and to my surprise, it wasn't just John's relatives but mine as well. Under the pretense of Charlie's medical expenses, while I had initially informed them just to thank and promise repayment, with the current situation, they realized John had used the money not for Charlie, but for his affair. Don't joke with me. I lent that money thinking it was for Charlie. Give me back my $20,000 right now. Same here. I want my $40,000 back. These words set off a cascade of demands from various relatives for the money they had lent. John looked around, his face turning even paler with each claim. Then he turned to me, smiling weakly. Natasha, we're a couple, right? You'll help me, won't you? What? Are you serious? You didn't help with nursing, didn't contribute to the medical expenses, or even the living expenses, and instead borrowed from everyone for your own selfish needs. Unbelievable. Why might I help you? Don't say things like that. With a pathetic voice, John slumped back down, seemingly out of energy to retort. I looked down at him, ready to deliver the final blow, and called to the entrance, Cheryl, please come in. Why is she here? John's face was a picture of sheer panic as he stared at the entrance. The woman named Cheryl walked towards me hesitantly. She looked plain with light makeup, a stark contrast to the woman in the photos. I invited her on Charlie's last day. She was with you, right? I thought it would be nice if she could attend the funeral. I'm sorry about this. Save it. No need for such superficial words. Cheryl closed her mouth tightly at my response, her face as pale as John's. I handed her some documents. I called you here today to sign these. Please read them carefully and sign. $100,000. I can't pay that. It's impossible. It's not for you to decide whether you can pay or not. Cheryl looked at me with pleading eyes, but I wasn't about to let her off easily. His gesture irritated me, but I had no intention of snapping over such a thing. Then, John, trembling, stood between Cheryl and me. What now? It's my fault, so please forgive Cheryl. Demanding $100,000 from her is just too cruel. Why should I? I'm merely asking for compensation for the affair. John raised his eyebrows and sighed heavily while screaming inside that I'm the one who wants to sigh. I waited for John's next words. That's because Cheryl is fragile, unlike you. How do you expect her to earn $100,000? How cruel can you be, John? Cheryl clung to John's back, both seemingly lost in each other. The cold stares weren't only from me. The relatives were ready to give them a piece of their mind. But I decided to add fuel to the fire. Cheryl, your son is hospitalized, right? He's 12, just like Charlie was always in the hospital. Your ex-husband took custody, right? Tough, with all the hospital and treatment costs, not to mention the bed fees. You must be getting quite a demand for child support, aren't you? How? How do you know that? Cheryl looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. John was frozen in shock. I pulled out some documents from my bag and handed them to John. He shakily read them, then suddenly pushed Cheryl away. Hey, what's this? Divorced with a kid? You never told me. Didn't you say the money was for your family living far away? I didn't lie. My son is my family. So I've been with a used woman. Where's the true love you were after? My money, you were only after my body. Cheryl threw her shoe at John, enraged. John lunged at her, and they started brawling like children, but fortunately, a security guard intervened. I approached the disheveled pair with a smile. John, please sign the divorce papers and arrange for the alimony. Cheryl, I won't reduce your compensation by a single cent. And your ex-husband said something about your affairs being a sickness that can't be cured. Seems like you have a few partners. So with that kind of leeway, expect enforced payments for the child support, treatment costs, and alimony. That's impossible. John hung his head, speechless, and Cheryl was led away by the security, her shoulders slumped in defeat. I apologized to each relative for the disturbance, and they comforted me, bringing me to tears. After that, my divorce from John was finalized, and we also agreed on the amount of alimony he had to pay, just as I had requested. This incident infuriated his parents tremendously. Moreover, the extended family was outraged to discover they had been deceived too, giving him the cold shoulder. Of course, he was asked to return the money he embezzled, and it seems like he borrowed it from some shady sources. To repay the debt, he's been working his fingers to the bone with multiple jobs, but the repayment is so huge that he's rumored to have nothing left for living expenses. Eventually, unable to keep up with the ballooning interest, Last month, he was taken away by some intimidating guys. His parents don't even intend to file a missing person report, so while I hope he's safe, I can't help but wish he suffers unimaginable pain. As for Cheryl, all the men she dated found out about her affairs and the child she had, cutting off all financial support. At 30, she's considered old for her line of work, struggling to attract clients, and eventually had to turn to her parents. She paid the alimony in one lump sum. However, she's since been sent to work on a farm on some island, with her wages going directly to her parents for debt repayment. As for me, I moved with Charlie's memorial tablet. I bought a house near the ocean, something Charlie always wanted, and now live there alone with the cat he wished for. I look forward to the times when my in-laws visit, and we reminisce about Charlie. Another letter from Charlie arrived for me. In it, he wrote in slightly blurred script about his gratitude, apologies for leaving for heaven first, and his wish to be my child again in another life. The letter ended with, "Mom, stay true to yourself, stay healthy, and live a long life," inspiring me to live my life for Charlie. Despite the sadness of not seeing my beloved child grow up, I'm living each day to the fullest.